Hey, Mike, I just finished a book today, and it really had me thinking. It's written by one of the associate pastors at John MacArthur's church. And if I could read just a tiny little bit, if that's okay.
Okay.
It says, the reality is that, like everything in life, God uses our enemies both for our good and his glory. A clear example of this truth is found in 2 Corinthians 12, where Paul begged to take away his thorn in the flesh. The context makes it clear that this thorn was a person who opposed Paul's ministry. And I looked in my Bible, of course. I've read that many times, and I saw where it says, I was given a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. I'd never really thought about it being a person. I always think it's his eyesight or something like that. So I was curious what you thought.
Yeah, I never, frankly, I never looked at it from that perspective. I think it was a person. There's nothing that I see scripturally to point specifically towards that in that direction. Thorn in the flesh, I would always, just by the phraseology itself, usually I would think that means something that he had to deal with physically, a shortcoming in terms of an injury or something that he's not skilled with. Maybe he was not a great orator. Maybe he stuttered. Maybe he had vision problems. There's a lot of hypotheticals there, but I would not bank on that doctrinally by any means, just because that's just more of a conjecture, I think, at this point.
Yeah, in fact, I would go so far to reject that. And the reason why is this. If we look at what the scripture really says, it says a thorn in the flesh. Okay, this is 2 Corinthians 12:7. Lest I should be exalted above measure by the abundance of revelations, a thorn in the flesh. Now, what's interesting, the word thorn in the Greek is the word tent stake. He says, was given to me a messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I be exalted above measure. Well, could it be a person then? Well, at this point, maybe. But as we read on, you're going to quickly see that evaporate. Concerning this thing, I pleaded with the Lord 3 times that it might depart from me. And he said, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Now, very clearly, Paul is recognizing this as a weakness. Therefore, most gladly, I would rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in needs, in persecutions, in distress, for Christ's sake. Never that it was a person. So I would have to reject that being, if you look at that in context, and we don't find, it's not worded as if it is a person. He refers to it as an it. If he would have said him, I would have said, well, you might have a little wiggle room there, but he doesn't say that. And we do know that Paul had problems with his eyes. Now, the one place in the scripture, it says, you're gracious, you'd even plucked out your own eyes and given them to me. He writes and he says, see how large of letter I write to you. But the letter isn't a long letter. It was probably describing the size of the letters in that epistle so that they would know that he hand wrote it. Now, again, it appears that it was his eyes that were the problem. And it is, we all know that our infirmities are of the underworld oftentimes. But he asked 3 times for it to be removed. And God simply said, my grace is sufficient for you. He didn't say, so I asked God for some really good words to rebuke this guy that's been troubling me. You don't find that. So I would have to reject that on the grounds of scriptural consistency and being in context. I hope that helps, Chuck.